While we were hanging out, Daniel and I were arguing about the title for the episode. So I I wanted to be called the Chinese Dragons because I think that's really cute. Like that the many languages are like little dragons. But Daniel is for something a bit simpler, like Chineses or something, Chinese
I don't know
languages
what I like
or
anymore.
something. What do you guys think?
I don't have any preference, so it's all good to me. Sorry. I'm really bad at, create names.
Titles are hard.
Yeah.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Because Language, a show about linguistics, the science of language. My name's Daniel Midgley, and with me now, she speaks Swedish, English, German, Samoan, and possibly some other languages, but she still gets annoyed when people ask, how many languages do you speak? It's Hedvig Hurgard.
Thank you very much for that introduction. I have to issue a small correction. I've changed my personality. I no longer get annoyed at this question. I actually happen to think it's a good question. I think linguists that know more languages are often better linguists.
I threw that in there a bit presumptuously because linguists often do get annoyed. But have you noticed that the tide is turning? People are like, yeah, you know what? That's not a terrible question. And people shouldn't be...
It's not a terrible question.
No.
And it's a bit... maybe it's a bit presumptuous to think that a general lay person would know that much about linguistics to know that that's a weird question. Like, of course it's a good question. You work about languages. Someone's interested in you.
And being able to engage with that question meaningfully to a layperson is a really useful thing, and I think every linguist should have a response available.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. All right.
Exactly.
We are also joined by two very special guests. Hedvig, would you mind introducing them, please?
Yes, I've gotten some training in doing the names. So first of all, we have Dr. Ye Jingting, who is joining us today, who has just defended her PhD thesis on the typology of adjectives in the world's languages at the University of Leipzig.
Good
Hello.
job.
Hi, everyone. And my name is Jingting. I do research on linguistic typology. And basically, I compare languages all over the world and doing a large-scale language comparison in order to find some universal patterns behind the linguistic diversities in the world's 7,000 languages. I'm a junior researcher at the Max Planck Institute for Evolutionary Anthropology at the Department of Linguistic and Cultural Evolution, and I work with Hedvig in the Grand Bank project.
All right.
Yes, exactly. And we also have a second guest here. We have Mei-Shin. I hope I did that okay. We practiced it before, and I think I screwed it up a little bit still. I'm very sorry. My Mandarin is not what it used to be. And she's a doctoral student also at the Department of Linguistic and Cultural Evolution at the Science of Human History, Max Planck, and the Evolutionary Anthropology, Max Planck, I believe. And she works on computer-assisted language comparison, mainly in East Asia.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Mei-Shin. The surname is Wu. So I use computer to analysis historical linguistic data. I focus on Sino-Tibetan languages, also Momian languages in Southeast Asia. That's all I can say about me.
No.
If you don't mind me asking, what's in your language background? Obviously English. What else have you got?
I speak a little bit of German, and maybe A2 level or B1, sometimes be ambitious. B1. I speak Mandarin, so Taiwanese Mandarin. I speak main language, so Taiwanese main language, but I'm out of practice, so I probably can't speak it so fluently now. Yeah.
Well, we're very grateful for both of you for coming on and sharing with us your breadth of experience into the various languages that we group under one umbrella and we call Chinese. Maybe we shouldn't group them like that. So maybe during this show, you can help us by helping us figure out some of the differences and basically where the Chinese languages are going.
It'll be very interesting. I should also say this is a personal favorite topic for me. So I prepared lots of questions for Mei-Shin and Ye Jingting, and I've had to really restrain myself to constrict it. So maybe if our listeners like this and they send in more questions, we'll do another show some other time on similar topics. For now, we'll do as much as we can within the space we have.
Yeah. Now, before we get to the news, our last 2 episodes were bonus episodes for our patrons. One was with Helen Zaltzman of the Illusionist podcast, where she helped us answer our mailbag. And the other one, just gone, was a cozy chat with Grant Barrett of A Way with Words, where he helped me go through an entire episode of Words of the Week. And it was great. Me and him nerding out over words. It was fun. If you are a patron, you get to hear all of our bonus episodes depending on your level. You can also maybe join us on our Discord channel. You can get mentioned on the end of the show. Sometimes we just invite all of our patrons, regardless of level, to join us to do stuff like live episodes. Or last week, we all hopped online and played Blabrex, and it was really, really fun. And of course, our yearly mail out, which goes to all of our patrons. So if you want to help support the show and keep us going, you can by going to Patreon and signing up as a patron. We are Because Lang Pod.
We chose to say Ben isn't with us this week, but we are going to do the episode nonetheless, and we're going to now go to news in the world of linguistics in the week gone past.
Thank you. Wow, that sounded very Ben-like.
I'm going to try my best to be Ben for this episode. It's going to be a struggle. I know. It's big shoes to fill.
Hey, wait a minute. How come you always get to be Ben? I want to be Ben. I want to be the audience surrogate because I know nothing.
Yeah, but we really need you to be the person keeping us on track. I really need that because I can't be Daniel. I can't do that. So I'm sorry. I'm going to have to be Ben.
Well, if you're going to be Ben, then I get to be Hedwig. No, I can't be Hedwig. I can't do it.
No.
Okay.
No.
I'm just going to have to be me.
It'll just derail too much. We can't have we can't have a Ben and Hedwig episode. That's just not possible.
Oh, now that you've said it, I like this. Oh,
no.
I would like a vacation. Okay. But anyway, let's get to the news. This one, the first story comes to us from Pontus on Facebook, who says, hey, found a very interesting TikTok about the text to speech on TikTok. So you can type stuff and there'll be now, this is a new thing, a computerized voice that will read what you type. Except, says Pontus, the new voice has been doing weird stuff when you feed it certain kinds of nonsense. Okay, so for example, some people have been typing an H. I will now play what happens when you type H over and over again.
H H H H H H H H H H H H.
Well, that's quite enough of that. Okay, so this is where we have to put our natural language hats on and figure out what's going on. Any idea why this might be doing this?
Well, first of all, I shouldn't have training data for like ASDFGH, HHHH, like random stuff like that. It shouldn't have any way of predicting how to pronounce it. So it'll just try its computer little best to do the best it can. The little machine that could.
Well, I think that's right. And at first I wondered why the speech synthesizer doesn't just, say it. But then I came to realize that a speech synthesizer doesn't just read sounds off the page because the same letter or combinations of letters could be ambiguous. And a few NLP folks have pointed out that things could go wrong at the stage where it turns the words into phonemes, but it could also go wrong when it turns the phonemes into sounds. These are all based on recorded human speech, and if the system runs into something unexpected, it can have problems putting the sound together in a sensible way, and then that's what you get. We noticed a few years ago back in our social show with Kitan Joshi that if you typed dog into Google Translate over and over again, and the language was Maori, it would spit out paragraphs of this apocalyptic text of everything being destroyed and people on fire running down the street and gigantic space lizards. And the reason it was doing that probably was that for low resource languages, one text that it always has is the Bible. And the Bible has some pretty apocalyptic stuff in there. So is that what we're saying? We're saying it doesn't have anything to go on, so it's doing its best and mucking it up.
Yeah, but then there's probably something interesting about like because it's not spitting out, fire and brimstone. It's spitting out these weird sounds. There's probably some significant difference, but we don't. I think the short answer is we don't really know, but it doesn't have training data. So you're asking it to do something it's not been prepared for.
By the way, I have posted our second TikTok video. We've got 2 TikTok videos now,
Amazing.
and it's about cheer cheese.
Oh yes, I saw that.
Cheer cheese.
This might be something Mei-Shin and Ye Jingting don't know about because we're an Australian themed show. There used to be a cheese in Australia known as quite a kind of
Racist cheese.
slur.
Yes, it was slur cheese.
And they have faced a lot of pressure to rename it, and now it's called cheer cheese, like cheers, cheer cheese.
Cheer cheese.
And they just renamed it.
And this was the week that in my supermarket, I happened to be there, and this was the week that they had crossed over where some varieties still had the old racist name and some had been replaced with the new name. So this was crossover week for cheer cheese.
Very exciting.
Yay. All right, what's next?
What is next? Next is something I'd love for you to tell me more about because I read a bit about this and I am excited and a little bit confused. So is it true that we can now have telepathy with guinea pigs?
Yes, it is. Language functions essentially the same. Their brains can do it, but they just simply don't. Maybe they don't want to. Yes, guinea pigs have language.
So I read a little bit about this, and can I give you my rendition? Then you can tell me if it's right or wrong. Is that
Okay, sounds
possible?
good. Yep.
They did a study where they played sounds to guinea pigs, and then they put electrodes inside the brains of guinea pigs and recorded the neurological signal in the auditory center. And then they fed that into a cochlear implant into a human. And the human, so it didn't do the sound waves into the cochlear implant, but the neurological impulses. And then the human reported hearing the same word that had been spoken to the guinea pig.
That is kind of the story. So it was a little bit more constrained than that. Yes, it's true. They used electrodes to wire up a guinea pig in a very invasive technique, so you couldn't do this with humans very comfortably. And they did capture the goings-on in the brain and then piped it to a cochlear implant. What they were doing was saying one of 4 words to a guinea pig. So there were 4 different inputs that humans had. And they said, all right, human, you're going to hear this thing. You have to tell which of these 4 words it is. And there were a bunch of different trials. There was wood and dime and bomb and goose. And other words were shore and ditch and mess and jar. So a human would say these words to a guinea pig. They would measure the guinea pig's brain goings on and then play that through a cochlear implant to a human. And whereas you'd expect a human to get it 25% right by random chance, they got the right answer about 35% of the time. Better than random chance.
Okay. Better than random chance, but not, first of all, not just picking any, like, it's constrained. You have to choose between 4 things, then you know that the word is one of 4 things.
Yes.
So it's not a random word that you just have to hear.
And it's not a sentence or anything like that.
It's not a sentence, and compared to 25, it's more than chance, but it's not like a lot more than chance, right?
No, that's right.
But it's still cool.
It's still cool, and it's a start, and it could have some application for reading the thoughts of people who can't express themselves, who have expressive disorders, so that they can be understood. They can make themselves understood through maybe a speech synthesizer or something just by thinking the words.
Oh, that's interesting, because I know there's already that kind of thing for spatial things, right? Isn't there, like, you can move your wheelchair with your mind? Isn't that already a thing?
Yes, there is. They've even got bionic arms that you can use to pick up an orange without squishing it.
Yeah. So we're like really close to what's his face in X-Men, Patrick Stewart.
Yes, exactly. Mei-Shin, Jingting, any input on this? What are your thoughts when you notice this?
I'm reading the paper now.
That's a good research instinct, reading the paper before you say anything.
Why are you reading the paper? What is this?
We've invited 2 academics on the show. They're going to start reading papers if we ask them for opinions. Like, I can't say anything yet.
You don't have to replicate it.
I want to know like how many guinea pig they use and then like how many trials they repeated and all these informations on the methodology. Yeah.
Dang, that's true. If it's just one guinea pig, what if you take it to a different guinea pig and it's different?
I'm hoping. So this study was published in Nature, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So I'm hoping that they did it on more than one guinea pig. I'm hoping that Nature has some standards, but it is true. We want to know how many they did it on. It's a good point. But do you think in general, Yingting, do you find this scary, this idea of mental to speech without articulatory organs? Or do you embrace our new telepathic future?
Actually, I just find it very exciting to see something like this, because maybe in the future we can just communicate without speaking, and that's cool.
Yeah.
And you know what else you could do? You could bring in the work from MIT that we talked about a couple of years ago, where they examined the tiny, tiny jaw motions that we all do when we think about words. You know, when we think a word and we don't say it, we still move a tiny bit, and those can be read. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. The team from MIT was able to distinguish, again, single words from just using a camera to look at tiny motions in your lips and jaw when you think a word but don't say it.
I have forgotten about this study. But this is very exciting. I'm sorry I forgot about it, because now I'm just like trying to keep my jaw really still and thinking about like the word monkey and the word bird and trying to see if I do a difference. I can't. No.
In other news, and this one caught my attention as well, this is about song, not language, but researchers have managed to reconstruct a bird's song just by monitoring its brain activity. So same kind of process. You just look at the bird's brain activity, and then you can reconstruct the song with the right pitch and the right timbre. And this could also help for people who can't communicate. It could help with vocal prostheses and speech synthesizers. So it's all happening, really cool. Man. It's all going on.
But presumably it's still, the reason why we're doing it on guinea pigs and birds is because the procedure is quite invasive. So that needs to be less invasive, presumably.
Yes, very much.
Yes.
And this is where I don't know much about why a less invasive procedure wouldn't work. I guess you've got to get into the sensory cortex or the motor cortex.
Yeah.
Huh?
I guess usually the less invasive things like EEG, electronic, I don't remember what it stands for.
Electroencephalogram.
There we go. It only measures we call it the brain bark. You call it something else.
The bark?
The outer bit of the brain.
Yeah, okay. I'm going with bark. I like that because I like thinking of my brain as a tree.
Yeah.
Or like a nut or something.
So presumably the things that are happening that are relevant are happening further inside of the brain.
Okay.
And therefore you need to probably put things inside of the brain, which you don't really want to do in a human.
No, not really. Okay. Let's see. What's next, Hedvig?
Next, we have a news item that we talked about a few episodes ago, but that I wanted to see if Mei-Shin and Ye Jingting had some opinions about. This is the news from the Taipei Times that in Taiwanese schools, children are going to be learning Hokkien, Hakka, or Taiwanese Sign Language obligatorily aside the rest of the education, which I understand is in Taiwanese Mandarin. So first, when I saw this news, it sort of said something like local languages will be taught. And I got excited because I thought it might include some Austronesian languages of Taiwan. But that's not the case. It's these three. But it still sounds pretty interesting. What do you guys think?
Okay. About that, yesterday I actually asked a friend of mine, his children, if they learn this Hokkien or Taiwanese mean at school. And then actually, yes, they learn it. And also in some schools in Taiwan near the mountainside, they have this, if the students' majority populations are from Aboriginal people, then they will teach these Austronesian languages. Yeah.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, like the songs, the dance, also like some basic conversations. Yeah, so we actually have that. Yeah, I think it's pretty good to have this.
Jingting?
I also think that it's a very good news to hear that, because if we don't protect those dialects or languages, then they will just phase out at some point. And it's really a very good practice to have children to learn them at school. Because, for instance, in Shanghai, 2 decades ago, people just only teach Mandarin Chinese and maybe some foreign languages at school. And the children, when they grown up, as they are the same generation as I am, and when they grew up, they don't speak Shanghainese fluently anymore. That's a pity. And I think this is absolutely very nice to have it at school.
Yeah, it does seem like a great initiative. Probably, like having a few lessons a week is there could be always more. I thought it was quite interesting that there was also the option of Taiwanese Sign Language alongside these other languages. That's really cool. Usually sign languages get left out of initiatives like this.
In most of the reading that I have seen, it does look like languages other than Putonghua or Mandarin are under a lot of pressure, and Mandarin is sort of held up as this good language, the majority language, the more majoritarian language, even sometimes a civilized language, and other ones aren't. Do you think that this represents a change, or do you feel like it's just that there are pro-language people and then there are pro-Mandarin people, and this was a case of the pro-minority language people getting a win? What do you think's going on?
If I remember it correctly, in my parents' time, the government will emphasize on speaking Mandarins most of the time, and you are not allowed to speak any other languages at school. And that's at my parents' time. And now I feel there's a change happening, that they say you should learn more. You should learn the languages that your family is speaking. And I'm really happy to see these changes. And because I also, when I was young, I practiced Min languages and I practiced with my grandma. And sometimes my grandma will feel really reluctant to practice with me. And she'll be like, oh, you can speak Mandarin. I understand. I said, no, I actually want to try. And so that's why I can sort of speak something, of course, compared with other friends of mine. I'm not really good at that, but I'm still trying. Yeah.
Wow.
Mm.
Yeah, I've also seen a change in that in mainland China. For instance, in the past, when we go on public transportation, we hear the forecast about what's the next station. And in the past, we only have like Mandarin Chinese and sometimes also English, but we don't have Shanghainese in Shanghai. But like maybe 5 years ago or so, if I remember correctly, we started to have Shanghainese as well as saying next station, or that's also a change. I think people have realized that it's really very valuable to have this heritage from the past. So the dialects or some local languages, they are very precious to keep. So that's why we see these changes.
That's so good.
That's interesting that it's happening in Shanghai as well, because if you're very cynical, you could think that it's happening in Taiwan because Taiwan is trying to, politically distance itself from mainland China. But if it's happening in Shanghai as well, that's a little bit of a different story.
And also we have have some courses teaching Shanghainese at the universities. So sometimes you can go to the courses and then learn Shanghainese. Yeah.
Mei-Shin, were you going to say something?
No, I just thought about a very short clip that my friend sent me about this Shanghainese in the broadcast in the train. I was like, oh, that's so cool to hear that.
It is.
Yeah, that's really
fantastic. Cool. Let's move from Shanghainese to Cantonese. It's a big world out there. And on our show, Because Language, we tend to talk a lot about English. We tend to be a bit Anglo-centric, even though we do try to discuss other languages when we get the chance. But lately, Hedvig and I got to have a chat with Israel Lai. He is a classical composer, he's a language learner, a YouTuber, a blogger, and he's a podcaster on the show Rhapsody in Lingo, which is all about linguistics, but not in English, it's in Cantonese. And so Hedvig and I got the chance to have a chat. How did you run across Israel, Hedvig?
He is a listener of ours, and he tweeted something about us, and I looked him up, and I found out that he had a podcast about languages and linguistics in Cantonese. And I thought, that's amazing, because just like you said, we usually cover English, we talk in English about linguistics, but of course you can talk about linguistics in other languages. It seems like a no-brainer maybe, but if you look at the linguistics communication out there, it's majoritely is my new word.
I love it.
In English. So yeah, I thought it was really interesting to have a little chat with Israel.
Israel, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I'm very excited.
Oh,
yeah, and because we should say the reason we know about this podcast is also because I understand that Israel is also a listener of this podcast. Is that correct?
Oh yeah, basically all of our hosts are a big fan of BL.
oh
In
stop.
general, yeah.
Oh,
So in a certain way, our podcast is sort of it's partly modeled after yours. So yeah, so we have a lot in common, I'd say. Yeah.
Oh, that's really cool. I really wish I could listen to your podcast because, as I understand it, the podcast is not in English. Is that correct?
Yes. So we're doing a podcast about language and linguistics in Cantonese, which I came up with the idea because I thought it was something that probably not many people have done yet. There are lots of podcasts in Cantonese about other topics, politics. There are podcasts about language learning, but not one about sort of the study of language specifically. So that's why I wanted to, explore that area a bit. Yeah, fill the gap, exactly.
Yeah.
Tell us about your language background. You are a speaker of Cantonese, obviously, but what else?
Oh, yeah. So like everyone in Hong Kong, I grew up speaking Cantonese, English, and a bit of Mandarin. Studied some French in school, but then starting from university, I started teaching myself languages. So actually, I'm more of a language learner than a linguist. I'm not really trained in linguistics, relatively speaking. But since then, I've studied around, 10 languages.
Cool.
Yeah, so that's my thing.
That's very
No big
cool.
deal.
Well, we found with our show that not being trained in linguistics is not always a bad thing. It can be great to have different sort of angles on the topics and news that we discuss. So I think you shouldn't see it as a disadvantage. It can be a great advantage, especially if you have that kind of like passion and interest for the topic.
Oh, definitely. So my perspective is definitely coming from the side of, language learning. And that's what made me interested in linguistics in the first place. And then I did a bit of linguistics when I was doing my exchange year in Sweden. And so that's basically all of it. But then my other hosts are more well-versed in linguistics. One of them, Samuel, studied linguistics in university. Now he's doing natural language processing. He's actually the one who sent a recording to you guys last year about Cantonese and Mandarin, if you remember that.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. And tell us about your other co-host.
Yeah, sure. As I said, Samuel's the one who is, the most knowledgeable in this regard, I'd say. I'm the, kind of like the Ben in this show, but I'm taking the role of Daniel.
Okay, a Ben-Daniel merger. Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
Whereas Kenneth he's the only one in Hong Kong now, and he's not a linguist either, but he's, compared to me, is more interested in sort of the comparison between languages. He's more knowledgeable in a wider variety of languages that he doesn't speak. So he's more of a linguist. He's also a conlanger, which is quite interesting.
Right.
Yeah, so that's why we're able to cover a large variety of topics. Like we did some conlang ones. We did some music. So yeah.
Yeah. So what kind of topics do you talk about on your show more specifically? Language and linguistics is a very broad topic. Hey.
Yeah, exactly. So we do a bit of everything, really. Usually we have one main topic each episode, so we talk about. So it's sort of like the let's educate our audience kind of thing, but a bit of discussion as well. And as I said, the reason I started this show was because I saw that you guys have a great show, and then I thought, well, your show is a very English centric one. You talk about things that are happening in the English world mostly. And then I thought, well, what if we talked about something that's more relevant to a Cantonese speaking audience? So, for example, some things about the Sinitic family or Asian languages. Sometimes we talk about language news as well that are happening in Hong Kong or sort of in like the Sinosphere or whatever. For example, this month we did a Pride Month episode, which I'd say it's quite brave because, I mean, compared to the English-speaking world, Hong Kong is a relatively conservative place. So we do cover a large variety of things. We covered things about, terminology we use in Cantonese to talk about these minorities. So that those differ from English in certain ways. Oh, fun fact, BL actually means something like that in Cantonese, or in Asia in general.
Oh, what does it mean?
It means, I think, boy love or something. So it's sort of the name of the genre of gay, like erotica, or not necessarily, or television or something. So,
very sweet.
Congrats for getting on BL. It's like, okay.
Jump on it. Awesome.
That's so interesting. And I think that's really important what you said, that, I mean, we're a show in English, so we'll talk about like, oh, what about this development in English? Or someone writes a book about the history of something in English etymology or something, and we'll cover that. But obviously that's not as interesting to a Cantonese audience. They might have completely different topics that are interesting. What are some other differences you think you found about what it's like to cover linguistics and perhaps your audience expectations and assumptions about language?
Oh, that's a very good question. I think our audience have a lot of different assumptions about languages. Especially there's, I'd say, more politics involved in sort of our side of the world. I mean, there's a lot of politics in English as well, as you talk about frequently. But for us, it's more the actual politics. So there are a lot of assumptions about, which language is superior, or a lot of confusion about the actual history of languages and so on. So our first episode was actually just Mythbuster. We wanted to get everything out of the way.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
What was
we did like...
I'm curious. Yeah. Let's hear some.
Wow. Okay. So one common one is saying that Cantonese is the same as Middle Chinese. So when when you say old Chinese poems in Cantonese, they rhyme better than Mandarin, which is true. But obviously, Cantonese came from Middle Chinese, so that's a different thing altogether. And then someone would say Mandarin is actually part of the nomadic languages. And the reality is that, they are influenced by those tribes, but in the end, they are also a descendant of Chinese. So these are the things that many people talk about a lot, especially when I go on Facebook and see people talk about languages. But then, people don't actually go and look up the actual history of things.
Wow.
It's so interesting that so much of it is about language history and language relatedness. We tend to deal with a lot of issues surrounding language prescriptivism, like people, well, in fact, not even so much, really, but some.
Not
we do that as well.
We think that they are well behaved when it comes to prescriptivism, usually, or if not, we sort of deprogram them. but
I think our audience is a relatively linguistically conscious one. So some of them are actual linguists. So they would be descriptivists. But at the same time, we do deal with a lot of prescriptivism as well.
Yeah.
So, for example, my other goal for creating the podcast was to create language learning materials for Cantonese learners, because it's really, the situation is really dire in that regard.
Really?
Because, I can refer you back to that recording that Samuel sent from episode 15. So because everything that's spoken in Cantonese is written in Mandarin. So learners have a lot of trouble just getting the input that they need. So, I am the one who is responsible for creating transcript for every episode. And
that's a big
in
task.
that regard, we have a lot of problems because Cantonese is very not standardized. So I have to very carefully pick what words to use. And then the language model that produces our rough transcript is also problematic in some ways. So I have to do a lot of fixing, For example, sometimes we have the same character for two different grammatical particles.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's a lot of debate on how to write it because we have a very relatively new convention of writing things in Cantonese.
Wow. I realized that we were going to have a short chat, but we obviously have a lot more to talk about.
I do have one more question, though. Just a long time ago, back in the Talk days, we talked to Zoe Lam, a PhD student in Canada, who reckoned that Cantonese was under immense pressure and that it was not endangered, but in danger of becoming endangered. What's your view on that? Do you feel like it's healthy, or it sounds like, since you're making teaching materials, you feel like it needs some promoting? Would that be right?
Yes, I would agree. But I would say that it's currently very healthy because lots of people speak it and use it in their everyday lives. But I do agree that it's under threat in a way because of the politics involved in our education system, and as well currently the huge wave of immigrants. So obviously we might in the end lose our language in certain domains. But at least for now, I think we are in a good place. And if we manage to, get more recognition for the fact that Cantonese is a language, then I think we're golden.
Wow, it is kind of jarring in a way to talk about Cantonese being endangered when it has so many speakers.
Yeah, so definitely it's not endangered for now.
Yeah, but I think you still have a good point that it's still in a different kind of position, politics-wise. It's not the same as other, you've been to Sweden. Swedish is not an endangered language, but it's also a much smaller language by number of speakers than Cantonese. But it is the language of the government and the newspapers, and it has a standard writing system and
Yeah, that's why we're trying to write more Cantonese now. So there is a new 1-year-old literary magazine in Cantonese that encourages people to write in Cantonese, which is actually a very new thing. So
that's really cool.
we try to preserve it in a way.
I'm sorry, I'm having a little trouble here because my impression, knowing nothing, was that Cantonese retained an older writing system, whereas it was Mandarin that did all the modernization. In what way is Cantonese kind of a new or not quite yet standardized writing system?
Okay, so I don't know how much time we have for this, but
it's also
you're thinking of the script. So in Chinese we have two scripts: the traditional script and simplified script, and which is what you described. But the writing language is a different story. So they are independent things. So traditionally we write in sort of a version of Mandarin, even though we speak in Cantonese. So that's a diglossic situation. And we have a century-old history of writing bits and pieces of Cantonese. So we're better off than other smaller Sinitic languages. But we feel very weird when we write something poetic or something formal in Cantonese. So that's what we're trying to change.
Wow. Okay.
It's really fun talking to you. We were going to talk about some of these topics as well in the rest of the show. So it's funny. Maybe we should have you guys on sometime to talk more about your show, all three of you, at some point.
Oh, fingers crossed.
I think I would like that.
Yeah.
I would like that very much.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, oh God, now I'm still talking on the recording. I should say something that's better at finishing up.
Shall I do the thing? Or
you can do the thing.
So glad it's not me.
We've been talking to Israel Lai, the composer, language learner, YouTuber, blogger, and podcaster of Rhapsody in Lingo. Israel, how can people find you and find out about what you're doing?
I'm on Rhapsody in Lingo basically everywhere. So Lingo as in Lingo. And our podcast is officially called a Cantonese name, but you can also find us through that English name.
Can you please pronounce the Cantonese name?
水言狂想.
水言上.
狂想. Yeah.
狂想.
Yeah. Not bad.
No, I want to do it. Please, can you do it one more time for me?
水言.
水言.
狂想.
狂想. No, what's the last consonant?
Vowel? Oh, consonant. That's a That's a.
It's the villainator.
Yeah. And we have the in Cantonese.
水言狂想. I did the tones wrong. I know I
Sung.
did. Sung.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, because you have the in Swedish.
Sung.
I'm just standing back watching.
I did take 2 years of Mandarin in high school. I know something about tones, but it's all sort of, it's whenever I meet someone who has a Chinese name, I try really hard, but then they pronounce it English without the tones, and then I'm lost.
Sorry about that. But yeah, in Cantonese, we do have a lot of vowels that aren't in Mandarin.
Yeah, that's I'm Swedish. That should be
exactly
easier.
Yeah.
Easier. Anyway, thank you very much for coming on the show and giving me a chance to practice some tones. We look forward to maybe having you on some other time again for a longer episode.
Yeah, come see me on YouTube.
Yes, we will.
We'll have some links on our blog, becauselanguage.com. Thanks, Israel.
Thank you.
Talking to Israel Lai of the podcast Rhapsody in Lingo.
Have you guys heard that idea that Cantonese is like older or more conservative?
Yeah. Yeah, and actually people think that Southern Chinese dialects are more archaic than the Mandarin varieties. But the most archaic one is actually Ming dialect instead of Cantonese.
Oh.
Yeah.
Israel mentioned that he thought that it might be true that Cantonese might be not endangered, but in danger of becoming endangered soon. And when I've asked this to Cantonese speakers, they're like, "No, that's ridiculous. Don't be silly. Cantonese has a lot of speakers." And it does, but Shanghainese used to have a lot of speakers too. But when the pressure gets on it to drop a language and to shift to another language, that can change really fast. Do you have any impressions of what's going on with Cantonese? Should we be concerned?
I don't think it will disappear because Cantonese is really different from Shanghainese. Cantonese is spoken just not only in Guangdong province, but also in Hong Kong and also overseas. And those people have all around the world. And those people, they really have a very strong association with or affiliation with this culture and this language, and they don't want to shift at all. And even nowadays in Guangdong province, if you come across any people in the street, you speak to them, they will reply in Cantonese. They won't reply in Mandarin Chinese at all. So okay. I don't really think it is in danger.
Is that your impression as well, Mei-Shin?
About Cantonese, I'm not very familiar with that situation, but actually long time ago I read so I watched a YouTube video and a person said that he is very worried about Taiwanese Min language being endangered, but I was thinking, no, that's really bizarre. You say that because that lots of people speaking Taiwanese Min language, and he start talking the whole video in Min language and use a lot of words that's kind of old, I would say. And I was like, oh, that's really not, I'm not really familiar with these words. So probably Min language is, or especially Min language in Taiwan is on the verge of, disappeared, probably like the proper one. Yeah.
Because it is a bit of a different situation in a way. Usually when we talk about endangered languages, we talk about very small populations. Some people say that in order to be endangered, or like that 20,000 is if you're below 20,000 speakers, that's like a critical point. But there's also the question of transmission and official status. So even if you have a lot of speakers, if you're maybe not used in the school, maybe not used in newspapers or on television channels. If Israel also talked about, he transcribes every episode, and sometimes he's a bit unsure of how to transcribe certain words, or there are options. And also for the linguistic lingo, they're finding themselves having to create terms in Cantonese to talk about linguistics. And all these things are sort of expressions of it not having the same status as Mandarin. And if all the Cantonese-speaking families send their kids to Mandarin-speaking schools, it could actually happen, but it's probably further away than for these small languages that we might be talking about in places like Australia or New Guinea or Indonesia.
But that's also the case with German, actually. For instance, if we talk about linguistics in German, we have to use a lot of English terms.
Yeah.
And that's just because that we communicate in English mostly in the international community.
Yeah.
But German wouldn't really disappear.
Yeah. No, that example might be not a sign of endangerment. That's more a sign of endangerment in as a linguistics language. It's the same with Swedish. I was very pleased whenever I read Germanic linguistics literature. It has some of the same words as Swedish, like substantive for noun. So I can understand German linguistics somewhat. Yay!
Yay.
Yay.
Well, that's Rhapsody and Lingo. You can listen to that by doing a search for Rhapsody and Lingo. Thanks to Israel Lai for that chat.
You should go listen to it if you can understand Cantonese. Yeah. Or if you just enjoy hearing Cantonese. Also, if you just like hearing Cantonese, you can also listen to it. Yeah, sorry about that.
I know, and I can't go listen, and that kind of bothers me. So it makes me want to support them on Patreon so that as a stretch goal, they could translate their episodes into English, because why should not everything be in English so I can
why
understand it?
Why should it not be accessible to me? Yeah.
I must be a part of every conversation.
We can Google Translate the transcripts into English and see if they do a topic we find interesting and then ask them to come on the show or something. Yeah.
Okay, you know what? I am definitely doing that. We're talking to Mei-Shin and Ye Jingting, talking about the ins and outs of what some people call Chinese, but which is actually a massive group of languages, some related and some not. I've always had trouble getting my head around this, so I'm really grateful to you two for coming on the show and talking us through it. Thanks very much for being here.
Thank you very much for inviting us. And when we talk about Chinese, actually, we talk about a lot of Chinese dialects or dialect groups in China. We normally we say that we have 7 or 10 different dialect groups. For instance, the Wu dialect is actually not a language or a dialect, but a group of different dialects. For instance, they have differences in tones or other aspects. Just to take an example, if we say Shanghainese, Shanghainese has only 5 tones. But just a very small town, which is near Shanghai, like with 1 hour drive or so, you can arrive that town. That town's name is Wujiang. And in this town, they speak Wu dialect, which has 10 tones. So there is actually huge differences even in the Wu dialect itself. So actually, there is a huge universe in them, I would say. And regarding other Chinese dialects, for instance, in Cantonese, we also see these kind of varieties in tones. In Cantonese, standard Cantonese, we have different tones as other varieties of Cantonese. Normally, we say that the variation is between 6 to 9 or so. So they are really different.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And that brings us to the first question, which is how many things are we talking about here? Because if we look at, for example, glottologs, which is a catalog of languages, there's a group there called Modern and Middle Chinese. And if you exclude Middle Chinese, which is an ancient language, it has about 18 languages as it lists as mutually unintelligible. And then each of those languages, if you click on them, has a whole heap of dialects. So it's a lot. And I know that there are different policies, like the ethnologue catalog and the glottolog makes different distinctions. And I know that within mainland China, people make different distinctions. And this can sometimes become political as well, because you know what people say, a language is a dialect with a navy and an army. It's power to say that something is a dialect or a language. And then linguists come in and say, oh, but we have this great thing called mutual intelligibility. And if you can understand each other, you are the same language. But maybe people understand each other because they are multilingual. It's a lot. It's a lot.
Oh, it's tricky. Can I just get my footing here and just run through some of the languages that we've already talked about? We've talked about Putonghua or Mandarin. We've talked about Cantonese. We've talked about Shanghainese. We've talked about Hokkien. That's just 4. What else are we talking about? What are some other languages that I would know that we're talking about here?
Hakka language.
Hakka,
Yeah.
Okay.
And Min, we talked about.
Min, that came up. Yep. Yeah. Okay, good.
And also Gan dialect, which is spoken in Jiangxi province. Gan.
Okay. Okay. So those are the main ones. Any more we should throw in? We're not going to talk about all of these in depth, but I just want to get the lay of the land here.
It's a lot, actually. So you have a Xiang dialect.
Yeah.
Yeah, so...
Xiang as in like Xiang. For example, glottolog lists as a language.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, if I'm a speaker of Shang, what other languages will I also probably speak?
Maybe Mandarin Chinese, and also some of them maybe also speak kind of Southwestern Mandarin, but not everyone, I think.
So you do have a situation where pretty much a whole bunch of people are walking around speaking 2 or 3 languages maybe on a daily basis. Would that be right?
I think most of the people in China would speak the dialect and Mandarin Chinese, so 2.
Basically 2. Okay.
Basically 2. And it's also normal for people to speak, in Guangdong province, for instance, it's normal for people to speak Hakka dialect and Cantonese and Mandarin Chinese. And it's very normal to speak 3 languages. And yeah, that's the case.
Yeah. And if we go the other way around, maybe, so like in mainland China, the largest language overall is Mandarin.
Yeah, that's correct.
And then it's also known as Putonghua or Hanyu or Shongwen. Lots of words. Are all of these referring to the same thing?
I think Hanyu does not refer to Putonghua.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
It also, we can also say Hanyu Fangyan, which means Chinese dialects.
Oh, yeah, because Han is like the ethnic.
Ethnic.
Oh, okay. And then we have places like Shanghai and Hong Kong that are a bit special, maybe. And so, what do people speak mostly in Shanghai?
Most of the people actually nowadays, they all speak Mandarin Chinese as well. And some of the older generations speak more Shanghainese, but the younger generation speak fluent Mandarin Chinese, and they don't really speak so fluently Shanghainese anymore, unfortunately.
Why the change?
Right.
Yeah, because in school, you have to learn Mandarin Chinese, and you can have maybe better scores if you speak very good Mandarin Chinese, and the teacher will like you, the students who speak better. And also because there is a huge difference between Shanghainese and Mandarin Chinese. Yeah. So
what are some differences between Shanghainese and Mandarin specifically?
We mentioned tones.
The tones, and also, for instance, pronouns are different. For instance, ni is the pronoun for you in Mandarin Chinese, but if you say it in Shanghainese, it would be no.
Oh.
So, and wo is for first pronoun, and ngu is the first pronoun in Shanghainese. So totally different.
Oh, wow. Can I ask you to say you're listening to Because Language in Mandarin and then in Shanghainese?
Yeah, I will try my best.
Yes.
你正在收听因为语言，一个关于语言学、语言科学的播客节目。This is Mandarin Chinese, and in Shanghainese it would be more or less like 侬现在在来收听因为语言。一个关于语言科学的播客节目。So that's Shanghainese.
That was great. Thank you.
You went up in general pitch, like by a lot. Did you notice?
Yeah.
Oh, that's really... Yeah, besides the words being different, you also your overall pitch just went up, like you sounded, higher overall. That's really interesting. Thank you.
Some of those words sounded the same. Which words were the ones that pretty much were the same in both? Or did I get that wrong? Are they just totally different?
I think they are very different, but 因为
That's the one.
so that's because that's very similar. However, for instance, 你 is known in Shanghainese, and now is 现在 in Mandarin Chinese, but in Shanghainese it would be 已经.
Okay.
So it's
that's
different.
quite different.
So lexically, really quite different, in tone quite different, in the way that you sort of, I want to say, perform the language quite different. What's kind of the same between those two? What does carry over? And Mei-Shin, feel free to jump in here.
However, the words, I would say that they come from the same ancestor, so they were more similar in the past, but then they split at some point in the history. And actually, Southern Chinese dialects, although there are a lot of differences, and maybe we can see more similarities among them, I can also try to speak the same sentence with Cantonese and Hakka dialect, and then maybe you can see more differences. First, Cantonese. 你正在收聽英華語言，一個關於語言學、語言科學嘅播客節目。And then Hakka dialect is like 正在收聽英華語言，一個關於語言學、語言科學嘅播客節目。So these are more similar. Yeah. So boka or boha. So the podcast is also kind of similar in those southern Chinese dialects.
Is podcast a loan word?
Yeah, that is because because you don't really say that in the local language.
Okay.
And maybe Mei-Shin, I know that you speak some Min. You said earlier that you're not as fluent as maybe you'd like to be, but do you know how to say a sentence like you're listening to Because Language, a podcast about linguistics in Min?
I can try the first half. 你今晚收聽因為有緣 and 一個關於有緣科學的節目
that
but
sounded quite different.
I find it really interesting is that because Taiwan is very used to code switching, so we sometimes don't really forcefully translate English to Chinese or to Mandarin. So sometimes we will just say podcast.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, since we're talking about loan words, maybe we could explore that a little bit. I know that in some languages like French or even Iranian, there's a feeling like English is encroaching on the vocabulary, or there's some resistance to loan words. In other languages, they happily take on loan words and it's no problem. What's the situation with, say, Mandarin or the languages that you're familiar with?
I think when Mandarin Chinese take loan words, they normally make it a Chinese word. So there are just very little words that are just taken from other languages. For instance, we only have maybe chocolate, and it is translated in Chinese like 巧克力. This is sounds quite similar, but for other things, for instance, computer, we would say 计算机, which is translated by meaning. So we don't really hear the English word anymore.
And is that different in Taiwan?
In Taiwan, so more recent borrowings, we don't translate it, like I said, but in Min language, you can notice a lot of words that are coming from Japan. So because of the colonization history, for example, soap in Japan, it should be soap. And in Min language, we call it sabun because we heard it's soap. And then we cannot pronounce soap, so we just say sabun. And tomato in Japanese is also tomato. And we just, in Min language, we just call it tomato. Yeah.
I know that in Taiwan, I also heard lots of different language names. I heard Hoklo, Holo, Taiwanese Hokkien, Minnan, and Southern Min. And some of those are the same, maybe, and some of them are different. I was wondering, Mei-Shin, if
because Taiwan's history is a little bit complicated. So let's say Qing Dynasty or maybe even earlier, there are several waves of Han Chinese moving to Taiwan. So they are mostly coming from Hokkien province, so Fujian province. So there are some other province as well. But then Taiwanese Min, actually, you can say composed of 4 different Chinese dialects, so Min dialects. So actually 3. Zhang Quan is 2, and I remembered another one. Sorry, I forgot the name. Yeah, but I know Zhang and Qian are really 2 big groups in Taiwan and in different geography locations. So because it's an island, so somehow people move around and then kind of nowadays just all mixed together. But even we say all mixed together, we still laugh at each other. Your pronunciation, like we say egg is nung in my city. In other city, they say nui. So we just laugh and then like, you don't really know how to speak egg properly. But actually, that's not their fault. It's just, different Min dialect.
And also to answer your question about the distinction between Haklo, Holo, and Ming or Southern Ming, actually Haklo and Holo means the people. It's in Ming dialect. I don't just speak the language, but more or less it's like Hokkien is like Fujian in Mandarin Chinese, referring to the province. And if they say people, then it's like Hoklo, because it just pronounces like that. So Fujian people, it means just the people from this province. So Hoklo or Holo, they refer to the same thing. So people from the Fujian province.
Wow, it's so, I'm sorry we don't have a time to tease all of this out. I'm sure people have written multiple books on this. So I know that, Mei-Shin, you are working in sort of historical linguistics, computationally supported historical linguistics, and the Sinitic family is not my area of expertise, but I have heard rumors about something called the fallen leaves theory. I was wondering if you could maybe summarize that for us.
So about Sino-Tibetan or Tibeto-Burman, these labelings about languages in China and also the neighboring countries. So there are many, many labels that are proposed, and each labels that they just basically refer to who is the origin of these whole language families. And there are so many phylogenies has been proposed until Vendrine. He proposed these fallen leaves models. Basically what it means is like, so he used an analogy or like metaphor. So like, can we just admit that we really don't have enough information to infer a whole phylogeny? These are the groups that we are agree with. Let's just imagine these are the leaves that are falling alongside of Himalayan. So like here and there, a little bit groups. And so he proposed like 80 groups, I remember. And when I was studying Sino-Tibetan language families, I actually quite interested in this model because that's the fact that it's very hard to infer the final tree because the whole languages in China, they have so many language contexts in the history, and these contexts maybe slowly blur out these vertical transmissions. So now, of course, 3 groups, they have published 3 different studies using Bayesian analysis to say that, like, okay, we say Northern China origins. And now kind of fallen leaf is, to people's mind, they will say these people, they more support this Himalayan origin. So like the languages develop nearby Himalayan, or you can say Sichuan province, and then they migrate east and then radiate to north and then south. So that's all these informations.
Ah, okay. Because, yeah, like you were saying, people sometimes say Sino-Tibetan family. So obviously Tibetan is part of that, and that's quite far west. And when people say Tibeto-Burman, they also include the languages of Myanmar as well. So it's a very large family. I really like this metaphor. So it's sort of like we don't know what the final language tree is, but we can look at the leaves, because the leaves is the idea that they sort of overlay each other, which is like mimicking the contact. So there's too much contact between the languages to say what is the proper tree, because maybe there isn't one. Maybe it's all networks or something. People also say wave model, which I
The
think
wave
is a
model.
little.
I was thinking of that.
Yeah, but I like
Yeah,
the fallen leaves metaphor.
Yeah, I like this metaphor as well.
but I have to say that although I really, really like this metaphor, but there are also some drawback about this model, because in fact, people really can categorize, oh, there are some groups that are more closer to each other than to other languages, right? Than to other Tibeto-Burman or Sino-Tibetan languages. So somehow these fallen leaves is in a way saying, no, your findings is not really relevant. Like we just say we all agree on these little groups, and we don't really accept these larger, more, a little bit more upper layers of relationship. So that's why people don't really like this. I cannot say this so definite. So more like not so many people agree with this model. But I do think that this metaphor has some sort of meaning there, right? It's just we need more. I think that Benjamin really had to say it more clear. What he think is we need more information, more field work, more language data to confirm. Yeah.
Okay, we need to
maybe-
move on to writing.
Yeah. Oh, writing means I get to talk about the word for Swedish in Mandarin.
Okay, what is the word for Swedish in Mandarin?
Yes, it's one of the things I remember from it. So there's lots of different ways of, but so when people in the Sinosphere first heard about Swedish people, it was Cantonese people, and they wrote down two signs that sort of sound like Sweden or something like this. And then they sent a letter. This is the story I got told in Chinese class in high school. And then they sent a letter to the emperor, and he pronounced it Rödien.
Yeah.
Which now is the name for. So it's if you pronounce it in the language that it was first written in, it sounds like Sweden, because it was like European, Dutch and English people. But if you pronounce it up north, it sounds completely different.
Yeah.
So it must mean that this writing system, you can communicate sort of meaning, but not necessarily sounds, which is fascinating to me.
Yeah.
The only thing that I knew about Chinese languages, and this is probably wrong, was that they were pronounced differently, but anybody could just walk up to a bit of written text and read it in their own language and understand it. It would just sound different.
Is that true?
But that's probably wrong, isn't it?
That's partially true, I would say, because even though people who speak different dialects can't really understand each other if they speak to each other, but if we look at the written Chinese, we can understand each other. That's actually also the case even if we go to Japan and then we see some Chinese characters, and then we can understand more or less. But if we don't learn Japanese, we can't really speak to the Japanese people. For instance, taking an example, library is written the same in Japanese and in Chinese, or more or less the same. And then if we look at the written Japanese library, we can understand in a minute what it means without learning. Yeah, so that's also the case with Chinese dialects. And if you write something down to the other person who doesn't speak Mandarin Chinese, he can understand you.
But what about things like word order or grammatical words? Because even if some nouns and some verbs are the same, even if you can read signs like, oh, that's the library or that's a water fountain, when you get into more complicated text where when you said those sentences, sometimes there were words that were different and they might have different signs. So some of the grammar must be missing, must be different in the writing as well, no?
That's true. That's true. I would say that, for instance, there are many more classifiers inside the varieties of Chinese.
Oh,
But
really?
in the written system, maybe sometimes we just leave it out. So
Maybe we need to
and
say what a classifier is briefly.
They are incarnations of your worst nightmare.
No, no, they're
No.
lovely.
Yeah, I also think they're lovely.
From my meager study of Japanese, I remember that it's a particle that you have to add to a number, especially a number, depending on what kind of object it is. So from Japanese, if it was cylindrical, it was hon. So if you want to say that you got one piece of spaghetti, like hard spaghetti, you can't just say it's one spaghetti. You have to say it's one hon, ippon spaghetti, because hon is the classifier for cylindrical objects. It's kind of like in English, I can't say one fruit. I have to say a piece of fruit. So piece is kind of functioning as a classifier for fruit, kind of. That's the closest thing I can find in English.
I remember the most common one, ge. That's
Oh yeah, ge is the
practical.
most common one, and actually it is also used as a relativizer or attributivizer, which
Oh my God.
it's like regarding the word order. I would also say that even if sometimes you get the word order wrong, you can still understand it more or less.
Oh,
Because
okay.
sometimes, for instance, as a foreign, as a second language speaker of English, sometimes I also get the word order wrong. Or in German, for instance, in German we have
Oh yes, very
always
easy.
have the subclause. It is just so easy to get the subclause order wrong because you always have the verb comes at last. But sometimes if
Yeah.
I just to speak German in the normal word order for the subclause, they can also understand. So I think it's not a big deal there. Yeah.
So you're saying that even though there are some grammatical differences, because the semantics is so much maintained in the writing system, you can understand text even if the grammar is a bit different from the different languages and dialects. But then I was going to ask Mei-Shin as well, because I know that in Taiwan, people maintain the traditional writing characters more often than these simplified ones. And is it difficult for Taiwanese people to read mainland text?
You need some time, but not long. For me, I can understand. So, because there were times I really fascinated by China's so novels in China's website or something, and I just so I spend like 1 hours to get used to the whole writing system, and I more or less can understand. But really, when I read text from Cantonese, oh my God, that's like an alien word for me. Alien text.
Really?
Yeah, I totally, I cannot understand at all.
Oh,
Wow.
really? That's interesting because
Yeah,
that
that's
speaks
true.
against
That's
what
true.
yeah. Wow, that's really fascinating.
That's true because Cantonese has a different set of characters that are different from Mandarin, from the traditional or simplified written Chinese. Because the Cantonese characters are just used to write down the Cantonese, so it is just different. But there is also another difference. The Cantonese characters are not really standardized. Sometimes they just pick up some characters to write down the dialect, but it is not standardized, not like the traditional written Chinese and the simplified Chinese characters.
That's similar to what Israel Lai was saying
Yes.
about the transcript. He said that sometimes he was unsure of what to write because it's not standardized. So that's really interesting because sometimes you come across the misconception in the West that there's one Chinese script. And if you write something in the Chinese script, you have suddenly served all of the Sinosphere communities at the same time. But you're telling us now that while some of the languages and dialects maybe can be mutually intelligible in the script, not all of them can. So like, yeah, Mei-Shin, if you can't read a Cantonese text, then, obviously it doesn't work. Even if we think you know, if you're a Westerner and I looked at a Cantonese text and a Mandarin text, maybe I would say, oh, they look similar, but they're not. Hey, I actually didn't know that Cantonese was that different in the text as well. Thank you. That's really good to know.
In fact, our friend Aristemo on Discord has asked, other than the simplified traditional split, do any other languages use a different writing system? Is traditional exclusive to Cantonese at this point? Is it only Cantonese that uses traditional script?
In Mindelo also have their own words, but not so much nowadays. Like they don't really write it down. They use Chinese characters to write it, and people know like, okay, that's we can read it in Min language. Yeah, so it used to have some words.
And is it basically just simplified and traditional, or is there a third thing?
The standard thing are just these two, simplified and traditional.
Okay.
They are also in the history. We also have other character systems, but that was used in the past, and there is a huge literature on that, and there is a long history on Chinese characters and how it developed from the ancient oracle scripts and then to other different scripts in the past. So they are all kind of different, but you can still see the trace, how it evolves into the forms of today.
I was told by my Mandarin teacher that while there could be about 80,000 unique Chinese characters, many of them are so rare. Maybe they only occur in one last name that's really archaic, and that in order to read a newspaper, I would need to learn between 3,000 and 5,000 characters. Does that?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah.
Because often when people say, oh, there are 80,000 Chinese characters, it sounds like a lot, but then maybe it's not that much, actually.
No, it's not that much.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's get to some questions from listeners on our Discord channel. Pharaoh Cat asks, in Pinyin, what sound does X make? I'm trying to hear it, and sometimes I hear S, and other times sh. My best guess is a combination of the two that is unfamiliar to my sound set. What does X sound like?
So X in Pinyin?
Yeah.
X in Pinyin sound xi.
Xi.
Okay, I'm going to try to do it. Is it si or si?
No, it's xi.
Oh, this is...
So for instance, let's take some word as an example. For instance, west is xi, xi.
Si. Oh, you're going to lay that tongue twister, aren't you? 4 is 4 and 10 is 10. And 14 is 14 and 40 is 40.
Xi.
I have to say that when I was learning Mandarin Chinese, the hardest thing was actually not the tones. It was these fricatives. Because in the pinyin you have X, and then you have S, SH, C, CH, and J. And they're all sound a little bit similar to the foreign ear. They're much harder than the tones.
So for the X, I'm getting somewhere between S and Sh, so kind of a S.
It's more like a middle of S and Sh.
Yeah, it's actually an important because it's last name of the president of China.
Oh,
yes, it is.
Yeah.
Xi Jinping.
Yeah, Xi.
Okay, I'll work on that. Let's see. Eugenie gave us a comment via email at hello@becauselanguage.com because we once answered a question about whether a Cantonese speaker in Hong Kong could pass as a Mandarin speaker if they needed to, if it were somehow politically expedient for them to, for the moment, sound Mandarin.
This came up because I was listening to an ABC show where a protester in Hong Kong said that after the protest, when police came, if she spoke Mandarin, then they didn't think she was a protester and she could go home in peace.
So Eugenie says, I have some doubts about whether or not many Hong Kongers can successfully pass themselves off as people from mainland China purely through language, as most locals will have a pretty distinct Cantonese accent whenever speaking Mandarin, and it can take years of proficient speaking and instruction to get the standard Beijing accent down pat. So unless a Hong Konger speaks Mandarin on a regular basis, perhaps due to work or schooling, verisimilitude and the relative ease of code switching may not come naturally. What do you think?
Yeah, actually, the accent is really quite resistant in not only in Hong Kong people, but also for other people in the in southern China who speaks a southern Chinese dialect. And actually, I can hear at the minute when I hear somebody from the south, I know he speaks Cantonese or Ming dialect as or Shanghainese as the first language.
But it should be possible to. I'm assuming that because this protester was able to fool the police.
It is possible, but you need some time.
Yeah.
If also maybe if you have that kind of motivation, maybe you apply yourself a bit more. Yeah.
I feel like we've just scratched the surface, and I think there's room for more shows on this, but I think we should probably end our discussion here. Ye Jingting and Mei-Shin, thank you so much for coming and talking with us on Because Language today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to move on to our favorite segment, Words of the Week. Any words that we find that are breaking, that are trending, that are significant, or just on our minds. And we have asked Mei-Shin and Jingting to bring us some words from the Sinosphere. What you got for us?
I can start. Maybe it's not the word of this week, but it was quite popular among Taiwanese. It's the backlog.
Backlog. Okay.
So, you know, the COVID-19 situations was kind of, let's say, blooming in Taiwan. And we had 1 year to prepare, but the government was kind of focusing on the border, but not with this PCR test or this something kind of test. And so when all these infection case reported, the government doesn't have time to test all these. So they just report the day that they can, the test number on that day. And then actually there are more cases than in. So then they had to, at the end of the week, they report a new case that's back in about the whole week. So that's called backlog. And so people kind of just use it everywhere. Like, oh yeah, I cook 10 dishes a day and something, and then suddenly like, oh no, I correct myself, it's 11 dishes, I do a backlog.
I like
So
that.
kind of a retroactive update. Okay.
It's a mathematical term, I guess.
Yeah, that's funny. So people can say it about anything.
Yeah. I've just got a backlog of work here.
But can you say, I drew 10 drawings yesterday and I made one more today and now it's 11 yesterday. Like I sent it back.
You can use it basically everything, just joke around. If you want to joke around some kind of numbers, you just use it. But the thing is, these popular terms that fade away really quickly. So maybe it was really popular these 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and then suddenly no one used it at all. So yeah, it's just these 2 weeks probably.
We're very
that's how
familiar
it goes.
with that here at the Words of the Week. It happens a lot.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Jingting, did you have one for us?
Actually, I have 3 Chinese words for you.
I'm ready.
The first is 内卷. Involution, which means involution. It just means a very competitive lifestyle in China. That, for instance, you have your children learning piano, and then you found that your neighbor also has their children learning piano, and everyone learns piano, and then in the end, everyone can play like lang lang. But in the end, it just brings nothing because everyone is struggling very hard in the same direction, and then in the end, everyone is good, but nobody is good.
Okay, so involution or 内卷.
That's why there is another word which depicts another kind of lifestyle, 躺平.
躺平.
Which means literally laying flat in Chinese.
Okay.
It means that I don't want to struggle anymore. I don't want to work hard anymore because it doesn't make any sense. And a third word is 后浪, which means behind wave. Literally, it just means a wave or a tide in a river that's coming behind. And we have like a Chinese saying, which is 长江后浪推前浪. This sentence means in the Yangtze River, we have some wave in the behind, and then it will push the wave in the front, and then make them in the on the beach and silence forever. So 后浪 means actually the new generation. No, I mean not to really silence forever, but the new generation will replace the older generation and then take dominance of the era. That's actually what it means. So when we say some younger people, we say that they are 后浪, and then they will take dominance of the world in the future.
Okay.
I like that.
So we've got Nejuan, which is the idea that society's moving really fast, but it's not really getting us anywhere. We're working like animals, and it's not helping. Then there's laying flat, which is which was that again?
That's to not compete.
Yeah, to not compete with anyone. I just stay at home and lay flat on my bed and doing nothing. And because anyway, I won't get anywhere. So at least I can have a rest and enjoy my life.
We have that in Taiwan. We have that in Taiwan. Tanping.
Tanping.
Yeah.
I'm tanping. I feel like I'm going to do the bare minimum to get by.
We also have a saying in Taiwan, like it was 在哪里倒下就从哪里站起来. So you, how to say, where you fail, you stand up.
You just stand up from the same point.
Yeah, but then now we say 在哪里倒下就在哪里躺平.
If you fell somewhere, you just lay
there.
Okay.
I like this. I like having all these Chinese things.
It seems like a lot of young people feel, at least in the West, that capitalism hasn't really gotten us anywhere, that the prospects for success are not great, and so that there's no need to kill yourself over things, and so there's no need to work yourself to the bone. So Tanping is the reaction to that.
Yeah.
Okay.
If I may, the words I said about the backlog in Taiwan is called 校正回归.
Okay.
校正回归.
回归.
Phew. This is great.
回归.
Yeah.
Hedvig, have you got one for us?
Yes, I also have a sinosphere-related word, which is red tourism. So as I believe Mei-Shin and Ye Jingting are aware, but maybe not everyone else, this year is the 100-year anniversary of the foundation of the Chinese Communist Party. And they have been doing a lot of celebrations in honor of this 100-year anniversary, and people are going to specific places that were important in the Cultural Revolution, or places that were important to the party, and sort of doing tourism in the Chinese Communist Party history. And people are calling this red tourism, which also has the advantage of being domestic, which in this kind of panini is a good idea, perhaps.
That's interesting. Is this use of red coming back into vogue? Because I remember that calling anything from China red, I mean, was only popular among political regressives. Back in the 70s and 80s, there was like one regressive congressman referring to red China. It was Jesse Helms, and it was really out of fashion. Do you think that the use of red is coming back?
I think so.
I was going to say as well that I got this term from the South China Morning Post, which is a Chinese-based newspaper, and they're using the term, and this was also recommended, by the way, by Aristemo on Discord as well, so our patrons are helping us with Words of the Week. But I think because it's like, this is not, I don't know, I think Mei-Shin and Ye might know better, but this is like red as in communist, not red as in Chinese, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
it does.
Red is the color of the Communist Party.
Okay.
So it's very communist specific.
It's very Communist Party, and actually 红色旅游 or red tourism already existed in the past, and there were always people doing this kind of tourist, this kind of red journey, and then just to see the important places. It's just because this is the 100-year celebration of the Communist Party, so it becomes popular again because of the time point.
Well, I have one more word of the week, and it is, okay, so Australia has one of the lowest COVID vaccination rates of any country in the OEC. Health professionals are ready, people are ready to get vaccinated, but the problem is supply, because in part, our Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, declined to buy lots of doses of Pfizer last year. So when this became a political problem for the Prime Minister, he sort of said, okay, fine, everybody can get AstraZeneca. Just go to your doctor. Just go get it. Even if you're young, even if it's risky for you, it's okay. It's cool. I'll sign off on it. So now health professionals are wondering what to do. It's kind of been a bit of a botch in Australia. And so this is why Pharmacy Guild of Australia Victorian Branch President Anthony Tasson has condemned the COVID-19 vaccine rollout in Australia as not a rollout, but a stroll out. It's a really slow walk, and it doesn't seem to be going very quickly at all. So
that's funny.
We'll see if that one catches on. Yeah, hilarious.
Yeah.
It makes the prospects of future travel look pretty dim. I feel like we've been very fortunate in Australia to have kept things at the low level that they've been at. But it would be really, really nice to have the vaccine situation ramping up, and it's just not at this stage.
Yeah.
So it's stroll
definitely.
out. Okay, so ne juan, or involution, tamping, or laying flat, ho lang, rear wave, and then we've also got red tourism and stroll out, our words of the week. Let's get to some comments. Sydney sent us an email, hello@becauselanguage.com. He gave us a correction. In episode 26, one of our guests thought that Taiwanese Chinese was a bit of a Creole or like a Creole. It's not a Creole. A Creole is a very specialized language situation that only happens in contact. It's not the same as a contact language or just any situation where languages are changing because they're in contact with each other. Thanks to Sydney for pulling us up on that one. Sydney says, related to Chinese, I thought it was curious that you didn't bring up written Chinese when talking about the lack of spaces in the conversation about Latin. Latin didn't used to have spaces, and we made a comment about feeling sorry for the old Celtic monks who had to deal with spaces. But some of us, well over a billion, have to read text like this every day. So that was an interesting point. Spaces in writing.
Yeah.
So thanks to Sydney for that comment. There are situations where it can be ambiguous if you place characters next to each other and there aren't spaces. Is that right?
So Chinese reading without spaces? Oh, we don't use spaces.
Does that make it hard?
Oh, word boundaries is such a huge topic, isn't it?
Yeah.
I thought we could talk about that for a while.
Yeah. I think we've set us up for a couple of Sino shows for a while.
Oh man.
When you learn Chinese characters as a foreigner, you get text with spaces put in for you to help you. But I know that later that might not be the case.
So the thing is, for example, weather reports, 天气预报. You can say 天气 is one word, 预报 is one word, but you can also say 天气预报 is one big word, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I mean, people probably don't agree with me, but it's yeah. So I just feel like word boundaries here is a little bit, I don't know, heavy to mention.
Yeah.
We do learn how to break words into phrases, but yeah.
But we don't need spaces for that.
Yeah. I mean, even the English term weather report, people write it with a space. Hey, I don't think that's a good idea.
Finally, this one comes from Jeff on our Discord channel. We had a discussion about what do you call it when you go, that's called a raspberry. By the way, why raspberry?
So this is like when you put your mouth towards something and you go, like that, or when you go with your mouth. I guess maybe it's like bubbles, and raspberries have bubbles.
No, it's not that. Why is it called a raspberry if you go... Here's the answer. You're not going to believe it. It's rhyming slang. Raspberry tart, which rhymes with fart, because it's a fart noise. So,
yeah.
I didn't mention that at the time. So then we had a big discussion about, well, this is our discussion with Helen Zaltzman, this is a raspberry if you go, but if you put your mouth up to somebody's tummy or your arm and do that, is that also a raspberry? And some people do call it a raspberry. Other people call it a buzzer. Other people call it a zerbet. Come here and I'll give you a zerbet. This is the term that I'm using. Oh. But we also wondered, what happens if you do it to a cat? And Hedvig, you bravely did this.
My cats are well, I have 2 cats. One of them is very easy to do it on. I uploaded it to our Instagram, I believe. You can see it. It's very easy to do. You just do it on your cat.
Yeah, and then the cat claws your face off.
No, she just skitters away disapprovingly.
Which she did in the video. Let's listen now to Hedvig blowing on the cat known as... Cement. But what if the pet is one of those hairless ones? Well, it turns out that Jeff on our Discord channel says, I have a Mexican hairless dog. Holo Itzcuintli. I'm trying my best on that Nahuatl pronunciation. And he loves getting a raspberry. Let's hear that now.
Hey guys, this is Ollie, and I'm going to do raspberry in his face. You're going to fart your face?
That sounds a lot like you'd expect.
Yeah.
He says also when he does the dog shake thing, it sounds just like somebody furiously clapping wet leather together, because I guess that's exactly what's happening.
Yeah.
So we appreciate your zerbets on pets. If you would like to send us your zerbets on your pets, especially hairless pets, we will always be up for them. Ye Jingting and Mei-Shin, thank you so much for joining us on Because Language today. It's been a real pleasure to have you. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. There's a lot there. We'd love to have you back.
Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you very much for inviting us.
And if you enjoyed that and want to get in touch with us and tell us some more interesting questions, we did have more questions that we didn't get to today, but you can get in touch with us at hello@becauselanguage.com or Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Mastodon, Patreon, TikTok, Clubhouse, and Substack. And on all of those places, we are Because Lang Pod. And we'd especially appreciate if you send us sound files of you blowing raspberries on your pets. That sounds lovely. Do send those in. And we can't do this show without all of our lovely supporters on Patreons. And today, for example, we had several words and questions sent in by our lovely members on Discord. We'd like to make a special thanks to all of our supporters. Their support also makes it possible for us to provide transcripts done by Maya Klein, which means that you can search our episodes and find out what we talked about in the past. So, shout out to our top patrons. They are Dustin, Termy, Chris B, Chris L, Matt, Whitney, Damien, Joanna, Helen, Bob, Jack, Kitty, Lord Mortis, Elias, Erika, Michael, Larry, Finn, Christopher, Andy, Mai, James, Nigel, Kate, Jen, Nasrin, River, Nikolai, Aisha, Moe, Steele, Andrew, Manu, James, Shane, Roger, Rianne, Jonathan, Colleen, Glyph, Ignacio, Kevin, Jeff, and Dave H. Thank you to all of you.
Special shout out to our newest patron, Andy from Logophilius, and also to Dustin at Stories Sandman, who, as always, has been telling the world about us and lots of other great linguistic pods. Our theme music has been written and performed by Drew Kleplyanov, who's a member of Ryan Bino and of Didion's Bible. You can pre-order the new Didion's Bible release, No Caveat. It's on their Bandcamp page now. No, this isn't a conflict of interest. We just like them and want to promote their stuff. Thank you for listening. We'll catch you next time. Because Language. We did it!
Yay! Wow, thank you guys so much.